All right, Barakatha Bashime Shai, double honors to the apostles of GreatMillStone and honest to you brothers that be pushing this truth and sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. Okay, this is going to be a relatively short video dealing with the fact that these different nations that you got out here are exposing the lies of the United States, okay, which we know as Babylon, okay, the woman that sitteth upon the beast, which we know to be NATO, okay, the resurgence of the Roman Empire, okay. So without much further ado, I'm going to get into this. It says Iran's supreme leader calls the United States fight against ISIS a lie as allegations intensify. Now, brothers have been doing videos about this for the longest, okay, how the basically the American government went out there into Afghanistan, Iran, and what was called the Taliban then, right, later transpired into what you knew as ISIL, which later became ISIS, etc., etc. Which, you know, to me that sounds like, you know, business corporations, because when you have a company and it goes bust, what you do, you rebrand it, you rename it, but you still have the same core shell of those people that are running it as the same. So that's just a side note. But pretty much what you're seeing is these different nations, they're more and more bringing out these allegations against the United States, and the more and more they bring it out, especially on these so-called mainstream, but nevertheless some alternative media streams like Russia Today, then people are going to be becoming more and more aware of it, okay? Because the fact of the matter is, if you're getting your news from the Daily Star, okay, and 1 minute you're seeing stuff about, okay, propaganda against Russia, and in the next story you're seeing some sensual story, okay, some sensual BS about, you know, the Kardashians or something, then you're not really going to take that news very seriously, the one that was talking to you about Russia. But you come out here, you go into Russia Today, and you're seeing, you know, basically serious stories, and you're seeing it to where the supreme leader of Iran is saying all of them lies, all of the stuff that's happening out there with ISIS, and that is lies. Well, more and more people are going to be waking up to that fact. And who has been at the top, or the first ones, okay, the premier individuals that have been pushing this truth against America, against all of these so-called government corporations that America has set up to go out there and basically destabilize the world. Well, the brothers at GreatMillStone, starting first and foremost with the apostles of GreatMillStone, Elder Tahar, Elder Gabar, Ramlab, Rukar, etc., etc., all the way on down to the least man within GreatMillStone. We've been telling you that these guys are full of BS, okay? And this is one of the BS stories that they've pushed out as propaganda out there into the world, so that they can go into Iran, so that they can go and be justifiably go out there into Syria, and to be justified ultimately to go out there into Russia, because these are all strongholds against the so-called petrodollar, and ultimately in being against the petrodollar, they're against the new so-called agenda, okay, the new agenda that they're trying to push forth out there, which is the so-called New World Order, all right? And it says here, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, let me try to read that again. It says Khamenei, I hope, okay, I'll call him Ayatollah for now. It says, has claimed Washington is lying about fighting terrorism in the Middle East. Okay, brothers in GreatMillStone have been telling you that for the longest, saying the United States activity has instead given rise to the Islamic State. And we know ultimately the Islamic State transpired from an American set-up corporation that you knew as the Taliban, which transpired into ISIL, ISIS, all of these different names. It's the same mercenaries working for the American government. Okay, it says that the Tehran's, which is I believe is the capital of Iran's foreign minister, says the United States has not honored the nuclear deal. Okay, you, the United States, and your agents are the source for the instability in the Middle East. Now, what is he trying to tell you now? Basically, I want to say roundabout, but really it isn't roundabout, because it is in your face. Okay, he's saying you, the United States, and your agents. Okay, it makes me think about Batman. Okay, and then Batman's adversary is Bane, and Bane has got his mercenaries, his agents that infiltrate different levels of governments. In other words, you got it to where you got the League of the Shadows, and they infiltrate all of these high power positions, and when they're ready to make a move, they make a move. Okay, or when they want something swayed to their agenda, they sway it to their agenda. Well, you're seeing this guy reveal the American equivalent of that, and that makes me kind of think about it. The League of Shadows. Well, that's how Esau likes to do, man. He likes to work in them shadows. Okay, right. So let's carry on with this, not to sidetrack too much. It says your agents are the source of the instability in the Middle East. Who created Islamic State? Boom. Okay, that's beautiful right there. Okay, he said, you, America, created Islamic States. And we've been telling you this from day, now you're seeing it more and more in the mainstream. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit more of this, but I'm going to go into the book of Isaiah, the 47th chapter in a second here. He says, excuse me, it says, who created Islamic States? Who created the Islamic State? America. America's claim of fighting against Islamic State is a lie. Okay. Ayatollah said Ayatollah. The headline, excuse me, Salakia. The headline Iranian leader known for his sharp anti-American rhetoric addressing senior Iranian officials on Monday. So, these nations are waking up to this devil that this man is. Not even waking up to the devil that this man is. It's just a thing of these nations have been awake to this devilish dudes that this man is, but you don't see it publicized in your so-called Western media, so you don't believe it's happening. Okay, I actually know people. I know certain people from Iran, and they'll straight up tell you, look, America, they done did this, that, and the third. I know people from all over these different countries, and they'll straight up say, look, we don't like the Americans, man. They'll come into our country, they'll steal our resources and set up these businesses, and then have it to where the resource within that land goes out. What do you think is happening out there within Venezuela? Okay, but how it's portrayed within your so-called Western media for the idiots out there, okay, is a completely different story to what the guys on the ground will tell you, man. Okay, it's all a thing of media deception. The media will deceive you into believing something that is a farce so that they can push forth their agenda for the elite banking families who own those same media stations. That's why you gotta go. Now, I'm not saying that Russia's not pushing forth their Russian agenda. I'm using this article purely because it is the truth. There's also a Russian propaganda too, right? Because we know the elites work on both sides, man. Okay, but ultimately, all of these elites working on both sides, they're all working to fulfill Yahweh Shimi Al-Shai's plan, wherewith it is said, nothing can be done against the Mosai, but for the Mosai, right? Because America is a terrorist country. Hey, that's gonna be that's gonna be part of the title, right? And backs terrorism, right? Right, America is a terrorist country and backs terrorism. What does it say within the book of Habakkuk, the second chapter? His desires is as hell and it cannot be satisfied. That is the description, the very essence of what a terrorist is. Okay, here it is. They're calling it. They're gonna be calling you Hebrew Israelite terrorists. Okay, because you go against the grain, the fabric of the so-called New World Order, and in going against the fabric of the so-called New World Order, you are deemed as a terrorist. See, this word terrorist is actually a broad term. It's not talking about these Islamics that are out there doing all of this stuff. It's actually they're using these that this guy is going into. So let's backtrack a little bit. If this individual is saying that ISIS was created by the United States, well, guess what? The London bombings and the American bombings were done by the United States. Okay, that's what he's saying. ISIS is created by the United States. Therefore, those bombings that they are having out there is not an attack by people coming into the country. Is an attack by the American government themselves. But we know that already because they're using that as a means to get control over these people. And if you can't see that far, then you're just an idiot and you're gonna die in these missiles that are coming out here. That's just a simple fact of the matter. The scripture talks about how knowledge and wisdom and understanding is the stability of that time. So when you're seeing chaos breaking out here loose, we're like, well, look, what did you expect? What did you expect? You said there was a new world order. How did you think that new world order was going to be achieved? Chaos. Okay? So it says, it comes, yeah, I like this statement. I'm going to read it again. America is a terrorist country and backs terrorism. Therefore, we cannot normalize ties with such a country. And this is coming from Ayatollah Ali, the supreme leader of the Iranian country, man. This ain't coming from us, okay? right? The bums, if you will, the bum camps and whatever these scoffer individuals want to call us. This is coming from the Iranian supreme leader, right? He's saying that America is a terrorist country and backs terrorism. No, it don't back terrorism. It creates terrorism. Okay, because terrorism it works, and you know, I'll give it to him. Terrorism is a very useful tool that the so-called white man uses against these people, man. Okay, because he actually hasn't believed the scripture said there's an old quote: the greatest trick that the devil played was that to make people believe that he never existed. So he's out there creating all of this terror, and people are like, that's not him, that's over them guys over there. All right, so it says it comes as relations between Tehran and Washington have grown incredibly strained, most recently overshadowed by a string of allegations made by a number of high-ranking Iranian officials claiming that the United States had forged an alliance with Islamic State. No, they didn't. They created it, man. Okay? And he said that in a roundabout way. Hey, he said, you and your agents, right, are the source for the instability who created Islamic State. Now he's going back on his word, saying, look, they're siding with it. No, I don't know. No, you said they created it, and you was right when you said they created it, because they did create it, because it was part of their moves to create such terror in order to establish their so-called New World Order. Okay, so I'm not gonna go too much anymore into that. You can read that for yourself. Again, that's on Russia Today. I'm pretty sure it's not gonna backtrack or anything. I haven't read the rest of that, but pretty much that's the story that the supreme leader of Iran has been saying. So now let's go into the scriptures and go into a few things. I'm gonna go into the book of Isaiah, the 47th chapter, but now I'm feeling kind of going into the book of Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter. So it says, "Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit down on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldees. Right? For thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate." Okay, so America, which we know is Babylon, the modern day iteration of Babylon, if you will. Okay, we know that pretty much to be America to be Babylon. Okay, you go to the book of Revelations, the 17th chapter, to break that down. Revelations, the 18th chapter. So many scriptures. Okay, Psalms, the book of Psalms 137 and 19, I believe, goes into that. Daughter of Chaldean, daughter of the Chaldeans. Okay, roughly quoting, right, where Edom, right, is known as the the new baby Babylon, if you will. Okay, take the millstone, grind, right, uncover the locks, make bare the legs, uncover thy thighs, and pass over the rivers. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen, and I'll take vengeance, and I'll not meet thee as man. So the key point I wanted to use this scripture for is this third verse here, where it says, thy nakedness shall be uncovered. Okay, so this is the nakedness, or the shame, if you will. Where we go? There we go. Okay, the shame, if you will, right, of the American government and really the elite banking families. Okay, because the American government is just a corporation that the elite banking families use for their agenda. Okay, really the elite banking families, this is their shame being uncovered here. Okay, all right, but ultimately America, because America is Babylon. Now let's wrap this up within the book of Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter, and call it quits on that. So Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter. And on the 3rd chapter, let's go backwards on that. Right, 2nd chapter, there we go, select. Okay, so, this is Habakkuk 2 and 3. It says, for the vision is yet for an appointed time. What vision? Okay, you go to the book of Revelations, the 18th chapter, you hear the scriptures talking about the destruction of Babylon. And people think that that's such a bad thing. It's a great thing, because in Babylon's destruction, then you have wickedness rooted out of the earth. Okay, in Esau's destruction, you have wickedness. Well, the scripture says it, that root of wicked shall be sealed. All right, sealed away, meaning he's going to be put away. Okay, and then wickedness being put away from the earth, just happiness. Okay, peace. Okay, the scripture goes as far as saying, in the book of Isaiah, the 14th chapter, how that even the trees are going to rejoice when this man's put out of power and ultimately destroyed. Okay, so the vision yet for an appointed time. So meaning to say all of that is going to happen in its time. Okay, in other words, be patient. Okay, but at the end it shall speak and not lie, though it tarry. Okay, Wait for it shall surely come. Now this is talking about these individuals that set up these counter life groups. Okay, these so-called terrorist groups. It says, but the geezers that set them up, the elite banking families. Okay, this is what the scripture says about them. Behold, his spirit, behold, his soul, which is lifted up, is not upright. Okay, in other words, it's unrighteous. So when you see Esau, you actually seeing and I'm talking about not a person that looks white, because we got so-called white people within the camp. Okay, don't get it twisted. It's not a black movement. This is an Israelite movement of Yahweh Shem Shai, not a movement of man, lest anybody should be able to expose and stop it. Okay, this is the movement of the Most High. Read about that within the book of Acts. This was a thing of man, like Marcus Garvey or some other individual out there. It would have come to naught a very long time ago. Okay, but because it's off Yahweh Shem Shai, you could see this thing steamrolling in the head. Okay, right? You know, just hey, it is what it is. You can see this thing just beautiful. It's just flourishing like a like a tree, right? That is by the river. And there's a scripture about that within the book of Jeremiah, man. Okay, so it says, the soul which is in him which is lifted up is not upright, but the just shall live by faith. And that's what we're living by, because we're living and believing that these things that is written about within the scripture are thus and thus, and they're gonna pop off, man. Because if they don't pop off, man, we do not have any hope. Okay, if the Most High doesn't send his son who comes in a UFO, okay, as ridiculous as that may sound, there is not going to be any flesh left to save. You're talking about cancers going out there rampant, okay? You're talking about houses with Wi-Fi. We got babies and children running around. So the kids are going all kind of messed up, okay? They're born into a world of cancer, okay? And that's before you get into food. That's before you get into water. That's before you get into the deforestation. That's before you get into just the whole ocean's dying, man. Okay, you got extinctions on levels that's never been seen before ever, because the person that's ruling is not upright. He's just wicked. Okay, you should be, if you have any love for anything within the Most High's realm, then you should want this man to be destroyed. Okay. You should want this man to be destroyed. Hell, this man wants himself to be destroyed, because if he sees really the world that he's created, death, man, that's not right. But hey, that's a different debate that's a philosophical debate, that. Okay, so let's carry on. It says, yea, also because he transgressed by wine, meaning philosophies, okay, or ideas. Also, you can understand propaganda, okay. Go to the book of Daniel, the 8th chapter. It says, was it the 8th chapter? It says, by his laws, okay, by his ordinances, was he gonna, conduct himself? Why? So you can understand. Okay, when we say philosophies, we're talking about the ideas, the breath of man, his anastrophe, what he's about, his conversation. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about wine there. So when a guy comes and he's saying speaking a certain language, and when I mean language, I'm talking about the words that he's putting together. I'm talking about his breath, the breath of a man, the actual essence of what he's about. Okay, right, is how he's going to move about. So his ideas, his philosophy, his anastrophe, if you will, is all about wickedness, man. Okay, so he transgresses by wine, by his own philosophies. He is a proud man, neither taketh up at home, who enlargeth his desires as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto himself all nations, and heapeth unto himself all people. So call it quits on there, and just go to this point here where it said, America is a terrorist country and backs terrorism. Okay, therefore we cannot normalize ties with such a country, and that's coming from Ayatollah Ali. So with that, hopefully that was of edification. You can check this article out here for yourself, and hopefully I'll get back to you on another one with some more videos, with some more topics. Okay, but I'm gonna say all praise unto Yahweh Shem Shai. Okay. Yahweh Shem Shai, strengthen you brothers out there, man. Okay, we're at the last stretch. This is the last one. This is the last, push. Make it count. When you're at the gym, the last set, make it count, man. Make it count. Okay, all that work you just did, them reps. Well, this is the last one. Okay, so make it count. So I'm gonna say shalom.